Coming up live on LiveWire, we've got a great show for you today. We are going to be talking with an urban farmer and learn what urban farming is all about. And then we're going to talk about reading partners, that is, developing reading skills in elementary schools. And it's an organization that actually helps teachers and schools get their students to where they need to be in a reading level at their age range. So stay tuned for LiveWire right after this. Farmer, and his name is Yisrael, and he's sitting across from me. Hi.
How are you doing today, Ray?
Great.
Good.
So, we talked a little bit about what you do before the show, but we should tell them. It's an interesting idea about how to raise crops in the urban setting.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, farmers are the original 1%, right?
Yeah.
And, I try to tell people all the time, they say, well, what do you do as an urban farmer? And I say, well, simply, I teach people the secrets of the universe.
Yes.
But, really what an urban farmer is somebody who's decided to take farming, which we usually think of as something that's happening on big acreage of land, and actually locating that activity inside the city. Mm-hmm. That's what we do as an urban farmer, for the most part.
Well, and then the food that you create, is that available to the public?
Well, it is available to the public, but where our farm is located, we're in the county. And recently, as of last year, we passed an ordinance to make it legal to grow your food and then be able to sell your food. But that was in the city. So what we're doing now is we're working with the county supervisors and planning commissions in order to pass an urban agriculture ordinance here in the county, so that then I'll be able to take the food that I grow in my yard and be able to set up a farm stand right there where I live.
Gosh, you'd think that you'd be able to do that. It's like, you drive through California and you see farm stands everywhere. It just depends on the county, right?
Absolutely. And, what's one of those things that, in starting the urban farm, it was one of those things that I was like, yeah, I'm ready to grow a whole bunch of food and start selling. And then I kind of ran into these things as I was going on my process to say, why is it not legal to be able to just grow food and sell it? But it's something it's a roadblock that we have to overcome.
You said something really interesting before the show, and I think that people ought to hear it. It actually costs more to deliver food and sell it than it does to grow it.
Absolutely. And when you start to look at the cost of food, when people start talking about organic food and how much it costs and how expensive it is, a lot of those costs have to do with transportation, because the average person that's, buying food from a grocery store, that's a 1,500-mile round trip for that food to get there. And so for myself as a small operator to have to pick food, wash it, clean it, all those different types of things, and take it to somewhere else and then sit there, it's just not feasible. So with the urban ag ordinance, where I can do it right on my site, it makes it a much easier activity.
It makes it a much easier activity. Good.
Yeah.
And also, people can get a good sense and start a relationship with the farmer. There's this whole movement into kind of fork to farm or farm to fork.
Yes.
I mean,
One way or another, right?
Take that back. That and people being much more aware of eating locally, buy locally,
right.
Local goods, and because it has to do with nutrition. They know that locally grown things that are not shipped 1,400 miles, that over a 2 or 3 day period, some foods really lose a lot of values.
Yeah, they use a lot of their nutritional value, and in some cases, some crops have to be harvested before they're actually ripe in order to survive the transit time from where they're harvested to get to the grocery stores. So being able to locate food right in the middle of where I live, which is a food desert, where within a mile there's not any grocery stores that you can get to. There's convenience stores with very little produce. Then this is something that's a game changer, and it can really move the needle on access to healthy fruits and vegetables in my neighborhood.
Right. And you were talking about where urban farming exists throughout America.
Yeah.
And I once got a job in Indianapolis, and from my office to where I was living, I had to drive through pretty low rent part of town.
Right.
And I would drive by and I could not see a supermarket.
Right.
There were no fruit stands of any kind.
Absolutely.
And they were you know, you're get in, go get yourself a beer, and we may have some apples, maybe.
Yeah.
So that has to change in America for us to get nutritional things. And I know good things are happening in the nutrition movement, you know, such as these nice heavy taxes on sugary things.
Yes. Those are good things too as well, but let's take this and look at it from a different perspective. You know where I live, South Oak Park, liquor stores, fast food restaurants, empty lots.
Yes.
They're already there. The empty lots are there. A lot of them are being used for illegal dumping and other activities that bring property values down and things of that nature. So in locating some of these, you know, lots and then saying, hey, why don't we grow some produce there, and then be able to really move the needle on the food desert and access to healthy fruits and vegetables. And what they found is when you start to locate those types of activities, you see the property values start to go up because urban agriculture can increase the value and increase the look of a neighborhood to give it an upgrade.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
So let's jump into kind of infomercial mode and talk about, you know, food itself. Now you have other things besides you just growing food. You have cooking classes. When does all this happen?
Various places. Some places, some of our classes, such as a composting class I did some time ago, happen on the farm itself. But the cooking classes can happen everywhere. We've had cooking classes at the Sacramento Food Bank. We've had cooking classes at our farm, local schools. But the class that's coming up on Thursday is going to be at Colonial Heights Library at 5:30. And that class is going to be led by my wife, Judith, and she's going to talk about, you know, healthy cooking meals for the season. Because, you know, most people, they start to get on their treadmills now because, you know, you got 2 holidays that are coming up where people love to eat. So being able to have some healthy,
wholesome meals for the season.
Wholesome meals for the season is going to be great.
Great. Good.
Yeah.
So, and I like the idea of, you know, you having a composting class and all of this other stuff, because it's very important for us to learn about, you know, using the tails of things that we don't eat and making sure that it can go back into replenish your garden or your own garden, personal garden, or, you know, your flower bed.
Well, one thing we have to realize here in the United States is that what we're talking about urban farming is not new. Even going back as recent as Victory Gardens. Remember those?
That's right.
What happened is that there wasn't enough food here because of the war. In that year, 40% of the total produce that was produced in the United States was grown as a part of those Victory Gardens.
Yeah,
so this is not something that's new. It's something that we've just kind of got out of the practice of, and we need to bring it back.
You brought some slides to show us a little bit. These are of the farm, I think.
Absolutely.
Let's have a look.
Okay.
Here they are.
So that's a few youth out of our youth mentorship program called Project Good, which means growing our own destiny. And so they're going through an exercise where I'm teaching them how to double dig, which is a process of how to get your soil ready to be able to plant in. Yes. Of course, those are two of our chickens that we have on our farm, and they're looking for grass and things to eat there because we do have chickens as well.
They're checking out the neighbor's yard.
Yeah, they're checking out the neighbor's yard. There's some children that stick their hands through those slats, and so they're getting ready to make sure that they don't do it.
Oh, I get it. Okay, what's next?
So that's when we had bees. When we first started, maybe a couple years ago, we had bees. Since then, we've had a colony collapse. But that's me in my bee suit, smoking up, getting ready to smoke up a beehive and get ready to grab some honey.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And so there you go. That's a frame that comes out of the That comes out of the beehive, yep. And then we have honey there, and so she's actually taking that and getting it right out of the frame there, sticking her finger in there and getting honey. It was a beautiful experience. We had about 30 or so people there, and then that there is produce from our farm stand. When the city ordinance passed on the 31st day, when it became an official ordinance, we had a farm stand at a piece of land that we have in the city.
It's great. It's really wonderful. I love it. I can see some of those good things. And they're grown, not even locally, they're right here with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you see as the kind of the development of urban farming, like the kind of thing that you do?
What I see the development, and you know, there's many examples from across the country, but what I do is I see there's several things, but we're talking about building community, and then we're also talking about providing economic activities in places where those things are not usually found. You know, for example, across the street from my house is a school that's closed, and now it's a community center. It's got a big school garden that's there that, you know, we're going to be doing some work on, but at the same time, what happens is that there's even more land there. There's a couple acres. So why not put an urban farm there and really move the needle on what's happening with, you know, food deserts?
So we got about a minute and a half left. So I want you to say whatever you need to say, because it's very important that we learn more about urban farming and support it.
Absolutely. So when you ultimately what you're talking about is you're talking about relationships. As I walk through my community and I see some of the things that the fast food restaurants, empty lots, illegal dumping, I see where people are not knowing how to take care of things and have relationships, productive relationships. So really getting people back into nature, getting people connected to nature, then teaches you about the relationships between living things. Because most people don't get the opportunity to take care of another living thing until they have children, right? And that's not a place to practice. So having people do those things while they're early, the children, they're going to be our next stewards of the earth. And we need to teach them how to respect the earth and how the earth can take care of them, so we don't have this, you know, adversarial relationship with the earth, and we can take care of our planet, because if we don't, we're in danger.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr. Yisrael, thank you so much for coming to talk to me. Thank you for being an urban farmer.
Thank you so much.
In my town.
Yep. Have a good day.
All right, sir.
Yep.
Well, okay, we've got to take a short pause for the cause, and we'll be back after some important messages and talk about some learning tricks for young people right after this important message.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
sirree. It's an organization called Reading Partners, and it's a support to school systems. And with me in the studio, right across from me, is Rachel Minnick, who's the executive director of Reading Partners.
Hello.
So you were walking down the street one day and you said, I think I'm going to help kids read.
It wasn't quite like that.
Oh.
A few years back, I actually worked on Mayor Johnson's literacy campaign called
Yes.
Sacramento Reads. And one of the cool parts of that job was I got to tutor a student in reading as a volunteer during that time. And I actually volunteered with Reading Partners because the mayor liked it. It was an evidence-based program. And so I fell in love with Reading Partners. And a few years down the line, I saw a job opening and I went,
Reading Partners?
yes. And the only question I had was, has the program changed? And the response was no. And so I immediately knew my destiny was.
That's your destiny. So,
Yes.
But we need to explain what that destiny is.
Yes.
It has to do with helping kids learn how to read
Yes.
quicker, better, faster, stronger.
Yes, I mean, we all know reading is the foundation of all learning. None of us would be in this room today if we didn't know how to read.
Right.
But in Sacramento, about 60% of students are not reading on grade level by 4th grade. Yeah, and if you're
Say that again.
60% of all 4th graders are not reading on grade level.
Wow.
So if you're a low-income student, it's even more of a dire situation. About 75% of our low-income students are not reading on grade level. And this is a nationwide problem. It's not just Sacramento. This is all over the country. And so Reading Partners was started to address that. A small group of teachers in Menlo Park years ago launched Reading Partners at a school. They had about 10 students in their first year, and it just grew from there. So the Sacramento Reading Partners started in 2009, and so we're in our 7th school year this year, and we work one-on-one with students. We recruit wonderful people from the community to be tutors, and we give them training, we give them curriculum, all the steps, we support them, and they work with the same student for an entire school year to get that student on track to grade level reading.
And you're successful?
Very, very successful. One of the great things that we had happen to us, we had our program actually independently evaluated, and we were found to have a measurable result in a whole bunch of reading areas, which it's a lot of jargon, which I won't throw at you today, but we were actually entered in something called the What Works Clearinghouse, which is a national kind of a national registry of programs that actually are proven to work in education. So we are one of the few reading tutoring programs that is in that What Works Clearinghouse. So we're really proud of that.
So that's great. So your primary thought then is that you want to make it grow then and reach more. If you are successful, then you want to spread it because, and how's that done? What do you do?
So really for us, success is mobilizing the community to become Reading Partners tutors. So just like I was a volunteer years ago, not that many years ago, but a few years ago, we have this year, we need to recruit about 900 people to tutor our students.
Folks, hear that wherever you are.
900. So we need you. I want to look in the camera and say we need you.
Need you.
Right now, we're a bit behind in our tutor recruitment. So we actually have students that their teachers have referred them to our program. We just don't have the tutor to serve them. And so you don't have to have experience. You don't have to be a teacher.
There's so many boomers who are just retiring from state government or wherever they're retiring from, who could really help us. You know, I mean, in this really age right now of anxiety, the one thing that we can do is look to the future and our children.
Exactly.
Right, don't you think?
Yeah. I think something that I love, Dolly Parton, if you're familiar with her.
Sure, I am.
She's a huge supporter of literacy because her own father couldn't read or write. And so it was always a stumbling block for him. He was always really sad and embarrassed that he couldn't read and write. So she made it a mission to give books to children all over the world. And what she said is, if you know how to read, you can educate yourself. And I think that just, especially in this time where we're all wondering about the education of our country, that children who can read can fact check, can find evidence, can back up their beliefs with actual information. And we want students to have that ability, not just in 4th grade, but throughout their entire lives. So tutoring with reading partners, what I love about it is you're doing something in that moment, you're building a relationship with that child, but you're giving them something that can never, ever be taken away.
Yes, yeah. I know. The funny thing is that in my family, I had some kids, some of my brother's children, you know, who they didn't want to, for some reason, learn how to read, and you know, and I would say, okay, don't learn how to read. You know, we need economic slaves, and if you don't know how to read, you're going to be poor and unhappy the rest of your life. Learn to read, boy.
Yes, yes. We have a student a few years back who has basically said, you know, reading is everything. How do you do anything if you don't know how to read? And this was a little, one of our students who just, you know, he got it just like you were talking about.
Absolutely.
It's essential to our lives, whether we live in the electronic age or we don't. You still have to read Facebook. You still have to read emails, and that's not going to change. Our students are going to have to be able to read no matter what they do.
Yeah, Facebook and all of that shorthand language are only meant to kind of pull you along on a daily relationship basis with people. It doesn't have to do with the development of yourself, your inside self. Learning how to read a good book.
Yes.
You know, and learn how language can fill your soul with goodness and understanding of what this planet is all about.
Yes.
Facebook isn't going to do that.
No, I was watching an interview with Oprah on a TV show the other day, and she was talking about reading a Maya Angelou book, and she said, I finally read a book about someone who understood me. Maya Angelou could put into words how it felt for Oprah when she was a child, and everyone has that experience where you're like, oh, I wish I could. These are the words that describe exactly how I feel or who I am, and that's such a magical experience for anyone to have. And we want every child not only to know how to read, but to be able to find themselves in reading as well. There's a lot of parts to it that make our work.
I love
really
the movies where, you know, they develop this a child who's always reading, you know. You know.
Yes.
You know, I go, yes, that's right.
The
That's what
bookworm.
you need to do.
Yes, exactly. You will take over the world.
Yeah, you will. You will.
Yeah.
It'll be given to you. Actually, you know, you understand
Yes.
it. They'll say, this person understands the world. Here's the world. It's for you. Roll it over.
Exactly.
Yeah, good. So I'm just moved by your success and at being, you know, saying that this thing works as a national, in a national way.
Yeah.
Everybody recognizes that. You have some pictures that you brought. Can we have a quick look at them?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Let's have a look. So you be the narrator.
Okay. Oh, this is one of our wonderful board members, and she's tutoring a student at Peter Burnett Elementary, which is actually right in the neighborhood where I live in South Sacramento. And this board member, this year, this was her student last year. This year, she tutors 3 students twice a week. So she is in our reading center 6 hours a week, and she just retired from the county. So she's one of those people that you're talking about who have retired and want to do something really valuable with their time.
Good.
That's me, and that was my student last year, and she was hilarious. We read a book about how Dr. Seuss came to be, and at the end of the book, I said, what did you think about it? And she kept talking about him as Mr. Seuss. Oh, Mr. Seuss did this. And I said, why do you keep calling him Mr. Seuss? And she's like, well, he was not a real doctor. There was no evidence to show that he was a real doctor. And I loved it. I loved her critical thinking.
Oh, who's that?
This is one of our younger students. So we have high school students who also tutor with us. This is at our Bret Hart Reading Center, which is in Curtis Park. And the beautiful thing about our program is you can be a college student, you can be a high school student, you can get service hours for your education by tutoring with reading partners. So the child student benefits, and then the older student benefits as well. So it's a real win-win.
Sure. I used to work for the state, and when I'd hire some people, I would look at their resumes, and if they had some programs like that, tutoring programs or things, things listed. Even though they were young, I'd give them better points.
Absolutely. It says so much about them. These are these kids, these are students at Ethel Phillips Elementary, and we had a very generous donor who provided summer reading packets for about 50 students, 60 students at that school. So these are Reading Partners kids who got to take books home for the summer, because when a student reads, I think it's 3 to 5, I don't have the exact number, 3 to 5 books of interest over the summer, they're more likely to retain what they've learned. Because as we all know, you come back to school in the fall, we were all kids once, we had to relearn a lot of the things that we had learned the previous year because you forget over the summer. And this is a way for students to be able to retain that information.
That's good.
And they were
That's really
so
good.
excited to get those packets.
So Reading Partners, and it's very easy to find you if I'm interested in being one of your readers, reader development, and you give them training, right?
Yes, we give them training, and we have somebody stationed at the reading center at all times. So you're never tutoring by yourself. You always have somebody there who is there to coach, to provide guidance, to intervene if your student's a little wiggly, is having some behavior challenges.
Yeah, behavior problems.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very much.
Nobody has behavior problems in our schools.
Well, Reading Partners kids generally want to be there. We have kids who are not in who go, when can I come? When can I come to Reading Partners? So kids are usually very well behaved. But if people go to readingpartners.org, click volunteer, it's extremely easy. And you just pick Sacramento and go from there, and we'll reach out to you.
I think it's wonderful. Reading Partners. Well, I wish you well, Rachel Minnick. Thank you so much. I think it's an important service to our community, and I see a little glow over the top of your head, and I bow to it. Okay.
Thank you.
Gosh, folks, that's all the time we have. You know, we're here every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and we talk to people like Rachel about how they're working in the community. And I get to thank them for their work and hear more about it, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll see you next week on this wonderful program called LiveWire, and we'll be live with you. All right. Okay. Thanks.